let's start with expanding the breath. I'm going to give you a little warm-up that you can do. 5-10 minute warm-up that you could do at the start of your day, at the end of your lunch, before you go back into the classroom, that will help sort of get those folds moist, get that breath moving properly, and help you stay vocally healthy throughout the semester as you're projecting more, articulating more, speaking through that mask. The first thing we want to focus on is the breath. We want to get that breath drop down into our belly breathing so that we can have the proper support for vocal production. So you can do this standing, you can do it laying down, you can do it sitting, but just take a minute and you can do this however your normal breath cycle is. If it's in through the nose, out through the nose, in and out of the mouth, or a combo mouth and nose breathing. So just take a moment now and notice your breath. Pay attention to your breath. You don't need to change anything, just put your awareness on the breath. Where do you notice movement as you're breathing in and out? And think of that 6-sided box. Put the attention on the top of the box, that shoulder girdle. And just sense the movement in that shoulder girdle, in that top of the box. As the breath comes in, the top of the box sort of lifts up a little bit towards the head. And as the breath drops out, the top of the box releases back to where it started. Inhale, box lifts. Exhale, box returns. And we don't need to actually do any movement. We don't need to lift the shoulders as we're inhaling and drop them as we're exhaling. We're just putting our attention and our awareness to that location. And then move your attention to the bottom of your box in that hip girdle. If you're standing, it's best to stand with your feet beneath your hips or shoulders and to give some space for those knees to move. And just notice that movement in the bottom of the box. No, your breath does not actually go all the way down into your hips. Though if you're breathing in the abdomen, you can feel the belly moving all the way down there. If you have a pet, you could put your hand on their lower abdomen right where their hips are and you can see that movement or feel that movement. So feel that bottom of the box moving towards your feet. And now think of the top and the bottom of your box together. As you inhale, the top moves towards your head and the bottom moves towards your feet. As you exhale, it returns. And then put your attention on the right side of your box, running along from the right armpit down to the right hip. And feel and sense and notice that expansion out towards your right arm. Feel the movement of your body as you inhale and the body expands, possibly moving that right arm if you're standing out towards the right side. If you're laying down, you might just feel more connection between the torso and the right arm. And then shift your attention to the left side, from the left armpit down to the left hip. And notice the movement on that left side and the expansion outward and the return back. And then put your focus on both sides, right and left. And notice the expansion out towards the walls and back towards your center line. And then move your attention to the back of your box. If you're seated in a chair, you can feel against the back of the chair. You could actually lean up against a wall if you're standing, or if you're laying. Obviously, you can feel as the back presses into and expands on the floor. And the back actually widens and flattens against that surface. If you're laying down, you'll feel the small of the back sort of disappear a bit and return. And you don't need to take deeper breaths. Just allow the breathing to happen, but just notice that back of your box as it's in movement, expanding and releasing. And then turn your attention to the front of your box, from your shoulders down to your hips, on the front of your torso. And feel that expansion outwards, moving away from you and then back in towards you. If you're lying down, it's going to move up towards the ceiling and then back down towards your center line, towards your spine. If you're on the floor, you might feel that belly button drop back towards the spine as you exhale and move away as you inhale. And then see if you can put your attention on both sides of the box, front and back, and feel that expansion in both directions, away from you. As you inhale, let the breath drop in and returning to your center line as you exhale. And now see if you can feel the expansion on all 6 sides of your torso box. Can you feel the shoulder girdle, the top, the pelvic girdle, the bottom, the right and left side, the front and back, all expanding so that you're filling the space? And the breath is dropping in. You're almost like a jellyfish now. So take your arms and let those arms float up a little bit as you inhale and drop down as you exhale. Float up a bit as you inhale and then drop down and bend those knees as you exhale. So you can feel this air movement like a jellyfish swimming in the water. In, you float up. Exhale, you float down. You don't have to actually do that movement. You can imagine it. Wonderful. Now let that go. And now just to sort of wake up your intercostals, give yourself a little, who is this? King Kong. So you want to do that all around your whole chest. Around the back. And actually all of our bones are hollow, so they help with resonation. So you can wake up your face. This nasal cavity especially will help us. The temple. Pat down everywhere. And then give it a little shake out to loosen up all of those muscles and wake up and invigorate the whole body. The breath brings oxygen to the blood, which flows through our whole body, so it's all connected. Great. So then we actually want to start exploring sound. Now that we've moved our breath all throughout our torso cavity, and we can expand in all directions. So, when we have our chin up and on a level plane, we're going to get the best sound production. Think of your vocal tract as like a straw, like a bendy straw. So we've already got a natural bend right here at the neck. If we open up the straw, then we've got a clear shot straight up. But the breath has to move at an angle. So we don't want to create more of an angle, which means we have to do more work to get the breath to come out. So you want to make sure that your voice comes out straight here. So I recommend doing this standing. Give some space between your knees so that they're not locked. Make sure your feet are underneath your hips, underneath your shoulders. And then just allow that breath to drop in. Find that breath again, find that 6-sided box, and allow for a touch of sound on the exhale, which is meaning that those folds are now meeting. And play with the whole range. If you hear air passing through, see if you can allow for the air to then meet the folds before it comes out. So that we're getting full contact with those vocal folds. Do a little rounds in that little roller coaster, if you will. So from the bottom all the way up to the top of the range and back down to the bottom of the range. And it can help you to do this as well. You also want to wake up those articulators. Can you do that while you buzz your lips? It helps if they're wet. You should feel some vibrating in your nose when you get up to the top there. You can also rub. If you cup your hands and put it in front of your face, you can feel the sound vibrations in your hands as well as the air as it comes out and how much air is actually escaping when you talk. The closer you put your hands to your face, if you actually make contact, you will feel that vibration in your nose. And in your cheeks and in your jaw. Now the trick when you do this sirening, this roller coaster, is to allow the breath to do the work. Your vocal, so your folds are in your, you can't see mine, housed in your voice box or your Adam's apple. The higher you are, the whole system moves up. The lower the tone, the whole system moves down. So if you can find that little Adam's apple, mine's fairly high, so I have a high voice naturally. Gentlemen, yours may be lower down here, so if I talk down here and I drop my voice down, this is actually the location of my Adam's apple. And when I go back to my natural tone, it's shifted up here. So you want to think about keeping that vocal tract open, smiling in the throat, yawning in the mouth, and just letting that movement happen naturally. Think of the breath. For me, it helps to think of the breath actually moving from all the way down here in my pelvic. You've got like a triangle in there, pelvic triangle, all the way up to the top of my head, and then back down. It also helps, if you noticed, when I went up high, I gave more space for the sound to come out by widening my mouth a bit. So if you do a couple of those, and then some humming. Humming is really good, and you can pat yourself, you can shake yourself to help get that hum out. Hum. So if you gather that hum in, you can feel the vibration, and then you can release it out to the space. Hum. 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 Mama. Mama. Oh. If you're noticing any tightness in the intercostals, as you breathe in, then you can actually use your hands to squeeze out. And that's going to help actually release those intercostal muscles. If you're feeling some tightness in here, you can grab behind you and look up. If you know yoga, you can go into camel pose. This is going to help open those intercostals in the front of the chest. If you're further tight in those shoulders, you can do this on the floor where you do these sort of crossovers, right, with our arms here. You can also go on the wall, place your hand on the wall here, and then you walk forward. So the hand's going to stay where it is. You're going to walk back. This is going to also further open up that chest, which is going to allow for more air to come in, which means you have more breath support. So you want to make sure that if you do something on one side, you do it on the other side. Otherwise, you will be lopsided, and that does not feel good. So make sure as you're breathing in any of these warm-up exercises that you check in with your breath. Where's my breath going? When I'm here, because there's a stretch, and am I bringing my breath up into my shoulders? No, we want to keep that breath down here. Though you do want to think about the breath bringing some more blood and more opening to that area. You can also lean over and hug yourself here, or do cat-cow is really good to open up and widen that back here. And stretching sideways here, as long as you try and think that you're not moving your hips, so your hips aren't going out, you're just moving that torso. And that's going to further open up the side right here. You can grab onto something if you want to do that to try and get a further stretch. If you are grabbing onto something, you can take those legs wider and then take the hips over. And then you'll feel that stretch all the way down. So that's a couple of things for your voice. Tongue twisters are great to warm up the articulators. Drink lots of fluids. Do a little warm up whenever you need to. Make sure you're doing vocal rest as well when you can. So that means not speaking when you can, in order to give your vocal folds some recovery time. But the most important thing actually is the breath support. That is what controls volume, the amount of air that you take in and how you use that breath to support the vibrations of the vocal folds. So none of projection happens in here. All of the projection comes from the amount of air that you're pushing through the vocal folds at that one time. So it's all about the breath. Also, if you tend to slouch, this collapses how much breath you can take in. So you want to make sure that you're growing nice and tall, long and wide, and the breath is deep. So you want to be tall and wide, and you want the breath to be deep. And you want to smile in the throat.